Blessings to you all this sixth Sunday of Easter, which could be called Get Ready Sunday, because we are going to get ready for something that's coming that we truly need, and that's Pentecost. It's the time the Holy Spirit comes down upon the whole world to renew its face, and can we use a little renewal right now? Well, all the readings today deal with the coming of the Holy Spirit. In the second reading, St. Peter tells us that Jesus is put to death in the flesh, but is raised in the Spirit. In the first reading, Philip goes down to preach to the Samaritans, the hated Samaritans, and they are converted. They see his signs and wonders, and yet something's still missing. So Peter and John go down, lay hands upon them, and they are filled with the Holy Spirit. They are baptized in the Spirit, as the old Catholic Pentecostals used to say. And now in the Gospel, Jesus is doing the same. He's saying to them, if you keep my commandments. What are his commandments? They're pretty straightforward. Love God, love your neighbor. I will send you an advocate. This advocate is the Spirit of truth. Today it is incumbent upon us to look at truth, especially in the times in which we are living. What is this Spirit of truth? You see, Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Now, we know the way. That means following his footsteps, do what he does. And that's going to bring us life. But what's in the middle? What's in the middle is the truth. And the question is, what is the truth? Well, obviously, for openers, it has to have something to do with the Holy Spirit, because it is the Spirit of truth, and it seems to be juxtaposed to the spirit of the world, which cannot handle or accept the truth. In this wonderful passage with Pilate talking to Jesus right before the crucifixion, he says, are you a king? And Jesus says, well, you say I am. He says, and the reason I came is to proclaim the truth. And then Pilate asks this incredible question, which has plagued us through the centuries. What is the truth? You see, the reason he can ask that question is because basically he lives a lie. His whole world is to manipulate reality for his own good and his own ends and his own purposes, and he's dealing with somebody who is the direct, radical opposite of that, whose whole life is geared unto others, unto the salvation of the world. Well, the question and the challenge for us today is to discern and to discover what really is the truth, especially in a world that seems quite confused right now as to what is truthful. And whatever the truth is, it is hard to tell because we are bombarded with so many falsehoods and lies and what is called fake news today. And indeed, some of it truly is. You go on the internet and you can see disinformation after disinformation, geared to do what? Divide and conquer. That's the way of the world. That's the lie of the world. If we can be divided, then we can be conquered, and whoever's doing the dividing is the one who can control, is the one who has the power. And there's something about us liking the lie. Mark Twain once says the lie can go halfway around the world in the time it takes the truth to lace up its shoes. The Carmelite mystic, William McNamara, was asked what he thought was the greatest sin of the modern world, and without hesitation he said, mendacity. We are much more concerned with covering up and looking good than we are with the raw truth that exposes reality. And we are told now not to trust anyone, especially our institutions, which have been under a systematic attack for the last several decades, beginning with education and even the government and especially the press. The last person we actually trusted in the press was Walter Cronkite. And now we tune in to anyone who will give us a confirmation bias and reconfirm our prejudices. We've come to the point now where we don't know what the truth is or who we should believe. Let's listen to Jesus again in today's gospel. I think we can believe him. He says, I will ask the Father, and he will give you another advocate to be with you always. It is the Spirit of truth, whom the world cannot accept because it neither sees him or knows him. But you know him because he remains in you and will be in you. I will not leave you orphans. I will come to you. Now that's pretty reassuring stuff, especially in the face of all the confusion we endure as to what really is true. I looked up the definition of truth in preparing for this homily, and here's what I found. The dictionary says the truth is the quality or state of being true. Now, how's that for a definition? I think my high school English teacher would have told me that's just a bit tautologous. Whatever the truth is, it somehow has to reflect reality and the facts of the matter. One of my favorite quotes on truth comes from Oscar Wilde, who said, "The truth is rarely pure and never simple." Boy, that strikes me as being true. We can talk of the simple truth, but in truth, it's not. Which of these statements is true? If we want to prevent more people from getting sick and many of them dying, we need to shelter in place, wear our masks, and keep our social distance. Or, if we don't go back to work pretty soon, our economy is not only going to go in the toilet, but you can flush it down for many years to come. So which one is true? Well, of course, the answer is they're both true. They both reflect reality and measure up against the facts. But what the dividers would have us do is to think that one is true and the other is false. Therefore, we weaponize them and we fight with each other against them. We have just been divided and someone's going to conquer, and it ain't going to be us. We are all going to lose. The truth is never simple. So what do we do in the face of two conflicting truths? Well, why does it have to be either or, as the world would have us believe? Why cannot it be both and? Well, it can, and to my delight, that's the position that our Catholic Church here in Illinois is taking right now. To tell you the truth, there is no one who would rather be in the midst of a congregation celebrating Mass right now than myself. Giving a homily into an iPad is not my idea of a good time. But it is not yet time. The science seems pretty clear. Go back to business as usual and you are setting yourself up for disaster. But we may be at least able to put our toe in the water, and that's what our bishops are recommending. Very soon we will be in phase 1, where we will be able to celebrate small funerals and weddings and baptisms and even hear confessions with 10 or less. That will be followed by phase 1A, where the churches will be unlocked for adoration if we can keep it under a certain number. And that will be followed by phase 2, which will be, depending on the situation, a coming back together in small congregations. And so the dichotomy is not between various levels of the truth, but there is a dichotomy between what Jesus refers to as his spirit of truth and the world that cannot accept it. Between what the theologian Thomas Merton said was between the true self and the false self. The false self, or the fake self, is the one we want to project to the world. It is our persona, and it always has to look good and invulnerable and can never admit to a mistake. It is our reputational self, and it is so fragile because it doesn't really exist anywhere except in our mind. It is not who we truly are. Our true self is who we are in God, and God in us. It cannot be taken away. It does not need to be defended. It is our deepest reality and our greatest truth. It has been said that there is not one ego in heaven. Oh, how sweet it would be if we had a lot fewer imperial egos dominating our world on earth. And it doesn't have to dominate. There is an advocate. There is a spirit of truth dwelling in each and every one of us. And all we need do is pay attention. The truth is not out there. It's in here. It's inherent. And we will know it when the outer shell begins to break and collapse. One of my favorite posters is that of a rag doll going through a wringer, and underneath it there is the saying that the truth shall set you free, but first it will make you miserable. We don't like to hear the truth. As Jack Nicholson says, we can't handle the truth. But do we ever need it? And we need it not only on an individual personal level, but we need it on a worldwide level as well. As long as we are nationalistically fighting each other, we're going nowhere. The moment we learn to cooperate with each other, we are going everywhere. And that's the truth. Mahatma Gandhi spent his entire life battling and exposing lies and bringing people together in truth. At the end of his life, he felt so much like a failure because the Hindus and Muslims were fighting each other. But then he thought and he said, what gives me such incredible hope for the future. He wrote, when I despair, I remember that all through history, the way of truth and love have always won. There have been tyrants and murderers, and for a time they seem to be invincible. But in the end, they always fail. Think of it. Always. We know how this story ends. It ends in the great truth of Jesus Christ. And the truth is that He is the way, the truth, and the life. And the truth will set us free.